With Deltarune chapters 3 and 4 right around the corner, I've decided to make a mini-series going over the speedrun strats used in chapters 1 and 2 because some of this stuff is really cool and I want as many people as possible to see how broken this game truly is. I will not cover extremely minor things like choosing the left tracer here because there's one less text box. I will only show the most noteworthy strats in order of the game's progression. This video will start with chapter 1, the second one will be about the main route of chapter 2, and finally the Snowgrave route. At the end of each video, I'll talk about the more niche strats like backups, this strat that is not used despite saving over a minute, and even a completely broken patch that lets you skip entire segments. There are 32 categories for the chapter 1 and 2 demo of Deltarune, and I've learned all of them over the past 2.5 years I've been speedrunning this game. Chapter 1 has 4 main categories. Any percent, which just means beating it as fast as possible, all the bosses, which also requires defeating Jevil, True Pacifist, which requires not beating anyone up with violence, with some exceptions, and 1.09 any percent, which requires playing on a specific version of the game that I'll get into at the end of the video. With all that out of the way, I hope you're ready to have your mind blown, whether you're already a fellow runner or not. So, the very first strat happens right before we even start the game. We are going to change our language to Japanese. In chapter 1, this saves a bit over 13 seconds due to a lot of unskippable text. Alright, let's begin. Note that we need to have completion data because it will allow us to skip straight to the Dark World at the start. We also use sticky keys or some sort of weight to hold down Control, the auto masher key, and Shift, the sprint key, throughout the entire run. With an asterisk, you'll see what I mean soon. We're immediately going to start off with a kinda easy to do but hard to explain strat to go through the Gonamrika faster. This is Taddy text, named after Taddyman. In short, if you hold X or Shift to skip the text and then briefly release it at certain moments, you can make it go by faster. There's a whole pastebin document made by Ocean Bagel explaining where to do these releases, which I will link in the description, and even a mod to practice it. It's hard to estimate how much this saves because of how precise some of these releases are, but I personally consistently save about 2 seconds if we're not doing any at all. For reference, in a task setting, doing all of them is almost 4 seconds faster. To give a brief explanation of how it works, the game's dialogue uses control characters which control things like portraits, tracers appearing, colors, but most importantly for this strat, speed. In the Gonarmaker sequence, the mysterious text normally speaks at 1 character every 2 frames, and at 2 characters every frame when holding X. If you release and repress X right before the text reaches a control character that delays it, you will skip past it, so it's not actually applied. Now, for the vessel and creator names. The simplest way is to name yourself one character for both, but make sure the character is different because the mysterious narrator will comment on them being the same, wasting time. But there is a strat here called bubble text where you name the vessel 2 characters and the creator 3 characters, which creates an effect similar to Teddy text without having to release X. It makes the text go by faster and can save up to 0.4 seconds depending on how fast your menuing is. Alright, that was already a lot in the first 40 seconds of the game. But don't worry, chapter 1 is pretty sparse when it comes to glitches or exploits. It does have some stuff, but not nearly as much as chapter 2, so hopefully it will be more smooth sailing from here. Now, we will use the bet to skip to the Dark World immediately. This is why we needed completion data, because otherwise you couldn't do this and you'll have to go through the entire school sequence. There is a category extension called True Reset that requires you to go through it though, if you're into that. As soon as the screen starts fading in, you need to spam the arrow keys to make Chris get up faster. Something lore about the player being in control or something, I don't know. Notably, if you're playing on the 2018 Chapter 1 only demo, commonly known as Survey Program, you will see a shining star up here, which you want to pick up. This is the Auto Masher, known in-game as the Wrist Protector. It is important to note that it only shows up if you reach the Dark World within 8 minutes of starting the game. You don't need to pick it up in later versions, because you automatically get it as soon as Chris leaves their bed. Here, I actually turn on autorun and release shift. This saves the frame in some rooms because autorun alters your position in such a way that lets you enter screen transitions earlier. This saves about 3 seconds throughout the chapter. This is a high level strat and you should only do it once you're comfortable with an autorun exclusive strat, only possible on the chapter 1 and 2 demo, which I will explain later. Also, remember that if you hold extra shift with this option enabled, you will start walking instead. This is also going to come up very soon. But for now, it's just movement. You can go diagonally through these corners if you really want to squeeze out some extra time save, but it's precise, and if you bump you lose all your speed and it takes about half a second to build back up. Here's Susie, and here's where autorun starts being hard to work with. You see, the Automasher in both chapters progresses text at 15 text boxes per second, and since the game runs at 30 FPS, that's half of its theoretical max speed. But only in chapter 1 you can mash Z and enter yourself on top of it if you hold extra shift while mashing. You can see how this gets annoying with autorun, because if you hold X for slightly too long, or start holding it slightly too early, you will slow down. There's literally nothing special up until you meet Ralsei and Lancer. You will tell him to not give a single f about the legend and fight Lancer. The optimal strat here is to just fight with Chris. If Susie gets targeted, make sure to get her hit at least once. This will be important for later. Optimally, the fight ends in 3 turns if you hit all the crits, which are frame perfect. If you miss one, that's okay. 4 turn Lancer only loses about 6 seconds and requires no crits. This is a good time to mention that you should try grazing attacks, or getting close to the bullets to gain TP, as much as possible because it makes them shorter. This doesn't apply everywhere though. For example, Lancer's and K-Round's attacks are fixed lengths. Skip the tutorial and grab the manual, which you'll only use for one thing later. Not that. Don't worry about that yet. Entering the fields, we easily go past these Rudins and completely ignore Top Chef because they don't care about him. Unless you're running all bosses and want to get a top cake for safety on Jevil, I guess. For the triple Hattie fight, we're gonna do the X-Flatter Act, graze the hearts and get hit near the end of the attack. This makes Lancer not appear mid-battle, which saves about 3 seconds. Then we spare only one Hattie, so the same attack occurs again and we can graze it. Spare the remaining 2 and head over to Susie. Here, you can do a strat called Susie Tag, or Joe Tag, named after the person who found it. When Susie approaches you, she actually stops to the left of Ralsei, meaning if you get Ralsei as far right as possible by turning around and double backing, you will save more time. If done perfectly, this saves about 0.3 seconds. After completing this puzzle with the power of friendship, we dispose of C-Round as quickly as possible by fighting with Chris and or Ralsei. We don't need anything from Sham, so we just go right and fight the 3 Jigsaws. Here, the strat varies depending on the category. If you're playing something that isn't True Pacifist, you fight the top one with both Chris and Ralsei and then befriend Spare the last one. If you are doing True Pacifist, you have to warn, then befriend Spare, then Spare. Optimally, that is the only difference in battles between True Pacifist and other categories. This is also a good time to mention that Lancer, C-Round and King are the only enemies that you can beat up and that will not abort True Pacifist. If Susie gets targeted here and she's at full HP, let her take a hit. This is the last opportunity you're gonna get for Susie targets. Up next is the box puzzle. The fastest way to do it is to push both boxes beside each of the buttons, push one to the end and immediately push the other. If you do this quickly enough, you will skip this dialogue and save around 0.2 seconds. That is called the box tech. Now, if you're running all bosses, go up to get the first key part needed for fighting Jevil later. The combination is Diamond, Heart, Club, Spade, or my favorite way to remember it, Red switch red, Black switch black. Finally, the last Rudin. This can be a somewhat difficult encounter skip and there's numerous ways to do it. This is the safe strat, where you wait here until he comes up to you, then go under him. This is the most common one, where you build up speed then run under him. This is Rudin, where you go up to him and run in a V shape to go near him without actually touching him. Because of engine changes between Survey Program and the current demo, this strat and most other encounter skips are much harder on the newer versions of the game. Finally, this is the last and fastest strat, which contains our first usage of autorun stutter stepping. ARS for short, which is very funny. Only in Chapter 1 and only in non-Survey Program versions, there is this thing called menu buffering. If you know Undertale speedruns, you've heard of it. Basically, you can press a direction and open the menu on the same frame and you will move a step on that frame. This is immensely useful because enemies can't do that. So by spamming the menu button, you can gain extra steps when enemies cannot, making for awesome but difficult encounter skips, or easier versions of existing encounter skips, which we will see later. You can arse even faster by pressing C and X at the same time, so that the menu opens and closes on the same frame. Auto-run is required for this trick, because if you don't have it on, you lose your speed when closing the menu. For this Rudin encounter, we make a sharp right turn and arse until we go past him. And honestly, I can't tell you more than that. The timing is pretty precise and I just go off vibes. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. Most top runners don't even bother with the strat and opt for Woodin instead. The checkerboard area is really simple since it's just about movement. These rooms with a pawnman can be a bit tricky, but with a bit of practice they aren't so bad. Lancer Fan Club is the fastest option here. This room might look scary, but it's actually extremely easy. Just hold right and at the end, go to the bottom. Here comes K-Round. Fun fact, this animation is 0.3 seconds faster in the Chapter 1 and 2 demo compared to Survey Program, for some reason. Anyway, in this fight you just want to deep bow 5 times. If Susie gets targeted in the first or second turn and she had taken damage earlier, kill her. This strat doesn't work from full HP because K-Round only hits 3 times and she takes 4 hits to die. This strat is called Susie Death and saves 6 or 4 seconds depending on the turn she dies on. This is because if she's dead, well, she can't attack K-Round, so you save time from not seeing her fighting animations. If you're running all bosses, there's another strat you can do here. If Chris gets targeted before K-Round drinks milk and they are at 66 HP, which is what they should be at after Triple Hattie if you didn't get hit since then, hit them twice so they're at exactly 2 HP. This will not work after the milk because it gives an attack boost, but you can hit Ralsei twice instead, assuming he's at full HP. This is not necessary, but it makes the later strat easier. In short, what this does is, only in Chapter 1, if at least one party member is at exactly 2 HP, you cannot die to overworld bullets, no matter how hard you try. We reached the Scarlet Forest. Do some taps in the opposite directions to skip these Rabecs. Just tank the damage from these diamonds. But if you're really quick, you can skip the cycle. And this strat is called, it's called F you YZA. This is because YZA discovered it and people hate him for it because this strat is pretty precise. The setup is different between versions and with or without autorun, but it looks something like this. Alternatively, if you get lucky, you can also just clip through the diamonds by going between two of them. This is because the game's hitboxes are really bad. There's no setup for this, it literally just kinda happens. I don't need to tell you the solution for this puzzle. Dodge this blocker by going down this path and back up. The solution here is Heart Spaded Diamond or Red Switch Black Red. This is the one thing we'll use the manual for. On Clover, the fastest strat is to use the manual and the fen, or vice versa, it doesn't matter, and on the second turn do manual and spare in that order. If both party members are under 45 HP or you're running all bosses and you haven't done the 2 HP strat from earlier, heal here using the save point because we'll do some damage boosting and you of course don't wanna die. For these blockers the strat is to go up, wait here until the right blocker goes as far as possible and go down. Or of course use Rs after passing the first blocker and move around like this. Or, even better, do a 1 frame long turnaround and Rs perfectly while going through this invisible middle path to just barely make it into the next room. No one does this, don't do it, it's really hard. In the next room, take this path to go through as fast as possible. By the way, did you know these scissor dancers make a sound if you interact with them? If you're playing all bosses, take this path instead to go down to the key part. If you're fast enough, you can skip this cycle and run under this dancer. This room is why the 2 HP strat is useful, since you no longer need to worry about HP when damage boosting. In all bosses specifically, doing it allows you to damage boost on the way back, even if you missed the fast cycle. In the room below, follow the Rabbit to the end, go up, get the key, wait for Rabbit to be on the right so you can run past, and return to the Scissor Dances room.
There's that. Okay, I'm actually gonna start runs now. If I die, then who cares? I have like 15 minutes. Well, technically not 15 minutes, but you know what I mean.
For the trash machine, just pick the first options. If you're running all chapters, pick Flamehead. This is really important since it's the best head for Giga Queen. The other parts currently don't have any relevant gameplay effects. Proceed forward and go up here to hit the invisible switch. Ratsay will comment on how cool and awesome Chris is for finding it. In the forest maze, you can literally just hold up and you will dodge everything, except for this Bloxer. There's a few ways to dodge this one. The easiest way is to hug the right wall, wait a bit, and go up. There are also ways to do the skip without letting go of up. The most important of these is called Starco, named after the Star vs. the Forces of Evil ship, where you tap left or right at the start of the room to alter your position, then hug the left wall without losing speed, and then go back right above the Bloxer, which shaves almost 0.9 seconds over the first trap. Out of all the millions of variations of this skip that don't slow down, Starco is the only one that works in both Survey Program and the Chapter 1 and 2 demo. The strat for the Susie and Lancer fight is to do X anything on Lancer 3 times, sync to Susie once, and then another X anything. Alternatively, you can do X anything twice, sync once, and X anything 2 more times, which is only a few frames slower and more beginner friendly because of the different attacks. Hold right, don't die. In the prison cell, you need to interact with 3 things to progress. The fastest strat is to interact with the cracked wall twice, which is colored differently to the rest of the wall by the way, and then with the iron shackle, which you pick up since it's really useful for future fights, and then talk to Ralsei. Your choices don't matter. They still don't matter. In this fight, the only way to save time is to graze, so try to do that as much as possible. It becomes impossible to graze after the third turn, so you can just sit back and watch the emotional cutscene fight and cry. Unfortunately, sometimes though, Lancer Spades can spawn outside the box, which is really annoying, but what can you do? After Susie frees you, go into the elevator. This section of the run is where most of the differences between all bosses and other categories are. If you are running all bosses, immediately head to the basement and talk to Jevil. Return to floor 1, exit the castle to the bottom, use the door to go to the fields, get the last keypad from Sham, go to the bake sale and have Malleus fix it and the broken cake if you have it. As you go back to the basement, you can skip Rudin Ranger in a few ways. You can hug this wall and get it stuck. You can do a strat called Sunflower, named after the Omori ship, to hug the wall pixel perfectly, but note that this strat is next to impossible with auto-run. Or you can also just R-Stool. Immediately after that, if you wanna risk it, you can do the one and only wrong warp in Chapter 1. This will be a lot more prevalent in Chapter 2, but I will explain it now. If you interact with this sign at the same time as entering the elevator, then clear the text and walk away from the screen transition, so just hold down, you'll be put at the center of the elevator, which shaves about half a second. Essentially, gaining movement during screen transitions means you will get put in the next room's default point, which is arbitrarily set for every single room, and is exactly where you get put when you load the save file. If you've seen Undertale wrong warps, they work similarly. However, this is really risky, because if you get caught by the Rudin Ranger while the fade out is happening, you will just softlock. Next up, the Jevil fight. This is arguably the hardest fight in the game, and it's even tougher in speedruns because of the really high grazing requirements. Some might say spam to Neo is harder, but that's neither here nor there. The strat here is to pacify him and end the fight in optimally 12 turns. This is really difficult, but getting a 13 turn fight only loses around 10 seconds, so it's still really good. The way the Jevil fight works is simple. Chris has 2 acts which increase Jevil's tired level. Pirouette only requires Chris to perform and costs 20 TP. It increases Jevil's tiredness by 0.5 and causes a random effect to take place, such as healing the party or lowering Jevil's defense. Hypnosis requires the entire party to use and costs 50 TP. It increases Jevil tiredness by 1 and he becomes pacifiable when his tiredness is at 9. We defend with everyone on the first turn and use Pirouette and Hypnosis whenever possible, except on the turns after the first Carousel and the Fast Circle of Spades. We always want a Pirouette there because we get healed. Once Jevil's tiredness is at 9, we can pacify him. Since acts and magic happen in order, you can do Pirouette, Defend, Pacify at 8.5 tiredness and the fight will end, awarding you the Jevil's Tail. It is theoretically possible to pacify him in 11 turns, but this has only been done in a task setting and is currently not humanly viable. Here is where the all bosses route converges back with the other categories. There's a few ways to skip Rudin Ranger here. The safe strat, which is to go out of the room, back in, wait until he passes the wall and go. The most common strat, which is to go close to him without being noticed, back to the elevator, then back again until he's at the leftmost part of his walk cycle, and go up while hugging the wall to get him stuck. Ultra Routine Ranger, which is done on Survey Program by doing an exactly 2-frame long turnaround right before you're noticed. On the Chapter 1 and 2 demo, this is only possible if you bump into the wall above, and it's also much more precise. Finally, you can use Rs to just run past the encounter with no need to do a turnaround. The amount of Rs needed is kind of precise since you need to manipulate when Routine Ranger notices you, but it's not too bad. Next up, you have to go to rules by tanging the damage from these diamonds. You can clip through them though, and the setup to do so differs on your version and auto-run settings, similar to you YCA. For skipping the head hatties, the normal setup is to go left until you reach this pillar looking thing, right until you reach this other pillar looking thing, left until you reach the first pillar looking thing, then go down and around. This is by far the most difficult skip and takes a lot of practice, and it doesn't help that it's much harder on the Chapter 1 and 2 demo compared to Survey Program if you don't use Rs. If you do, it becomes a lot easier. You can just do Rs, and assuming you don't bump, you can go. It's not really that precise. Oh, there's also this really stupid strat with Rs that's pixel perfect. In this room, you can just hold right and tank the damage. However, with near perfect movement, you can avoid the scissor dancers by taking the bottom path and doing a small turnaround before the second one. This is barely faster, but does have the benefit of keeping you at a higher HP. Most people simply just take the top path. At Runes' shop, you wanna buy the Brave Axe and leave. Equip the Brave Axe, Iron Shackle, and Devil's Tail if you have it to Susie. For the second key round battle, just throw Ralsei 3 times.
Smell kids. I don't want. Well, yeah. Well, I happen to.
Calcium, vitamin D, and potassium.
Finally, the King fight. Fun fact, this cutscene is 0.3 seconds faster in the Chapter 1 and 2 demo compared to Survey Program, for some reason. Anyway, this is the most nerve-wracking part of the speedrun because it's right at the end, and if you miss menu at all, you lose a turn, so about 10 seconds, and it's really annoying. Depending on your equipment and your strat of choice, this is gonna vary a bit. The safest possible strat is to defend with everyone every time to end the fight in 16 turns. This also means you don't need the Brave Axe since you're not gonna be attacking. You could also equip the Devil's Tail to Ralsei for better healing, just for safety. The next strats include alternating between doing Red Busters with Chris and Susie and defending with Ralsei when you have 60 TP and fighting with everyone otherwise. These strats are called 5 red or 6 red, depending on how many Red Busters you cast throughout the fight. 5 red saves about 15 seconds over a defense strat and also requires fighting instead of defending with Ralsei at least once. 6 red saves about 5 seconds over 5 red and optimally doesn't require any Ralsei solo hits. It's recommended to fight with Ralsei on the 10th and final turn, which is the one after this attack, just in case your Red Buster alone doesn't do it. If you don't have enough for a Red Buster on the final turn, you can also try Fight Root Buster Fight and it might kill. This is called 4.5 red or 5.5 red. The 0.5 strats, as I call them, lose about 2 to 5 seconds to their normal counterparts, depending on if the Root Buster itself does it or if the Chris and Ralsei attacks also have to go through. If you have Devil's Tail though, the fight is a bit different. It can end in 9 turns instead of 10, and you have to fight with Ralsei at least once when doing Red Buster. People usually do it on the final turn or the 5th turn. The crit and grazing requirements for this fight are really precise. If you miss more than one Chris or Ralsei crit, you have to fight with Ralsei a second time. A perfect 9 turn saves around 5 seconds over a 10 turn with 6 red. And that's it. Really, the speedrun is essentially done minus some walking. If you've done the true pacifist route, you'll have to go back and talk to Lancer before leaving the Dark World. In the Light World, just make a beeline for Chris's house. Look at Sans if you want, I guess. Time ends on the frame the text inside of this text box disappears. And that about covers the Deltarune Chapter 1 speedrun. But as promised, the video is not over yet. There are some extra funny things that are possible. The first of the two things I want to talk about is version 1.09. It released in February of 2022 as an attempt to try to fix issues caused in 1.08, where loading save files will put you in the wrong room or not work at all because of a room added at the start of the list which shifted every other room ID up by 1. This was obviously a huge issue and the developers attempted to remedy this as fast as possible. Unfortunately though, they messed up 1.09 even more. 1.10 was released a bit later which fixed everything, but 1.09 remains available to download through archives. You can find a guide on how to get it on the speedrun.com page through Steam or find an archive of the itch.io version. In Chapter 1, there's 3 spots where this version is useful. In the maze of that room in the fields, this one where you fight the Hatties. You can save and reload and you'll be put one room forward. This is because the developers made a script to manually add every valid room in the game once you can load into normal means and have them function properly, but they missed this one. So you can just entirely skip the fight, saving about 18 seconds. These 1.09 save and loads are called save wrong warps and are considered such major glitches that entirely new subcategories were made for this patch. Then, in the forest, if you get to low HP, one hit away from death to be precise, before entering the trash machine segment, you can go back after building your machine and die once here, and once here. Also, did you know you can spam Z and enter to skip the game over screen? This save wrong warp chain does nothing more than save you some walking and is 3 seconds faster. Finally, in Card Castle, after completing the first rules puzzle, you can do another save wrong warp chain of 5 deaths, putting you all the way after the second puzzle. This is 3 seconds faster than fighting Head Hattie, but it is slower than doing the regular Head Hattie skip. This used to be a safety strat from before the discovery of Ars, so it became pretty much obsolete. The strat is called Head Hattie Skip or Snowy Castle, named after Snowy Core from Undertale, because in both strats you kind of warp to the entire area.
Let's not clip through this scissor dancer like I did before. That's pretty funny.
And the second thing I want to talk about, the most ridiculous strat in the game, auto and manual stuttering, called ARMS for short. Remember menu buffering? Well, it turns out that if you have some sort of text up, most commonly the manual because it's the easiest to access, and open the menu immediately after progressing the text such that there's no frames in which the game thinks you have movement, you can menu buffer and walk without technically being allowed to move. This means you can skip entire cutscenes with ARMS. The cutscene never starts because you don't actually have movement, you're technically already in a cutscene. But with ARMS you can slowly but surely make your way through the room. Every buffer except the last is frame perfect, and missing a single one means you trigger the cutscene you are trying to skip, so it is insanely difficult and even harder to do in a way which would save time, so nobody goes for it in any capacity. The most noteworthy uses for this, including the number of buffers and the time save you've done absolutely perfectly, are Jigsaw skip, 52 buffers. This saves about 11 seconds in non-True Pacifist and about 19 seconds in True Pacifist. Clover skip, 12 buffers, saves a bit over 6 seconds. This small cutscene here, 4 buffers, saves like half a second. K-Round 2 skip, 53 buffers, saves 18.5 seconds. This cutscene after the True Pacifist epilogue if you haven't talked to Lancer yet. Okay, this is the one that's the most interesting. It consists of 15 buffers, and at the very least this one just sends you back to the start if you miss one, rather than triggering a cutscene which you'd have to watch. If you do it in True Pacifist, it saves 36 seconds over talking to Lancer. But, funnily enough, it saves a whole 0.9 seconds over a regular any percent run, due to the shorter post-King fight cutscene in True Pacifist, even accounting for the longer Jigsaw fight. Of course, no human can do ARMS perfectly, so practically this isn't faster. As of recording this video, April 19th, 2025, there is only one run in the entire leaderboard that did this skip. It is this 2652 True Pacifist run by Chistosito, who I've seen practice a while for this, so shout out to him because that's crazy.
He's fucking buffer, man. Yes! Holy fuck! Let's fucking go, man! Who needs mashing strats? You can just be good at the fucking game. Let's fucking go, man. I'm not playing this category in like nowhere. No, I'm not playing this category in like years. I swear to God. I'm fucking done with this shit.
I will leave the run in the info card on the top right. Alright, that was even more crazy stuff, and chapter 2 has it even worse. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I encourage you to learn how to run the game yourself. I promise it's fun.
Do this menu right.
I swear. I leave the speedrun.com page as well as the community Discord server in the description if you wanna try. I initially wanted to do everything in one video, but it would be way too big. So next up will be chapter 2 main route, including all bosses and all recruit stuff. This is my biggest project yet, and if you liked it, please like the video and let me know what I could have done better in the comments. I'm open to any feedback. Subscribe and look at my other socials if you want. Maybe join my own Discord server too, I guess. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time with even more insane speed strats.